up to $500 million. According to data provided by the State Department of Revenue, the Colorado marijuana tax rate has brought in millions of dollars in revenue every year. When the law went into effect in 2014, the state made about $67.5 million for the calendar year. This has increased every year, reaching around $302 million in 2019. A fiscal report published by the Liquor and Cannabis Board in 2019 mentioned that Washington generated $367 million in 2018 and $395.5 million in 2019. According to the Portland Business Bureau, Oregon brought $109 million in revenue in 2019. It is clear that in these challenging economic times, spurred by COVID-19, that Pennsylvania needs recurring, sustainable income. With this in mind, I fully support the administration's efforts to introduce the legalization of adult recreational cannabis in such a way that invests much-needed financial resources in our underserved communities and acts restorative justice programs throughout the Commonwealth. The plan to direct some of the proceeds for grants to existing small businesses and 50% of the funds dedicated to historically underserved communities will enable us to give people improved access to essential programs and services and to lift up our communities as we have done here in the Mountain Center. For years, this building, the Mountain Center, served Coolbaugh as an elementary school. After 9/11, people moved to the Poconos for new opportunities beyond the big cities. New schools were built, and this building stood empty for 4 years until Pocono Services for Family and Children purchased the building for Head Start. Tim Lee, the executive director, envisioned a community center that would bring services predominantly located in Stroudsburg and East Stroudsburg, 20 to 25 miles away to Coolbaugh Township. Some were skeptical that agencies would move up to the mountain, but they did, and 4 years later, the center is home to 13 different agencies, including Feeding Family Ministries and my legislative office. A pantry staffed by dedicated volunteers who feed upwards of 200 families per week. As you can imagine, when COVID hit, their numbers grew exponentially, and the director, Diane McFadzean, and staff quickly implemented a plan of curbside service to maintain social distancing while feeding our community. The last remaining space in this building is earmarked for St. Luke's Family Medical Clinic. I am proud to report that our office, with the help of gaming revenue, have secured over $300,000 for this important addition to the Mountain Center. Using revenue from the legalization of cannabis will provide desperately needed revenue for projects like the Mountain Center, which provide essential services here in Coolbaugh Township. With a growing trend of legalization of adult-use cannabis throughout the country, we must address the tens of thousands of incarcerated people who purchase small amounts of cannabis and are serving time. Many cities in Pennsylvania, including Allentown, Erie, Harrisburg, Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh, have decriminalized possession of small amounts of marijuana over the course of the past few years, and yet arrests persist. According to the Pennsylvania State Police, 21,789 individuals were arrested for marijuana possession in the state in 2019. The year before, roughly 24,000 people were apprehended for marijuana possession, and in 2017, nearly 30,000. These rates are the highest of the past decade and surpass the number of arrests that took place prior to the introduction of decriminalization efforts. One reason for this is police can use their own discretion when it comes to arrests, as decriminalization efforts are usually non-binding when it comes to law enforcement. I agree with Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman that an average of 20,000 Pennsylvanians arrested per year for small amounts of marijuana possession is a waste of resources. The most important resource being the criminal records of these people, of these Pennsylvanians, that will have a black mark on their record until they get a pardon or we get a wholesale pardon through legislation. Clearing those records would help address a rather glaring discrepancy when it comes to punitive actions related to marijuana. It would address a glaring disparity between the incarceration of whites and blacks arrested and sentenced for the same crime. Blacks are arrested nearly 4 times more than whites for marijuana possession and serve longer sentences. I fully support the administration's efforts to introduce the legalization of adult recreational cannabis in such a way that invests the much-needed financial resources in our underserved communities and enacts restorative justice programs throughout the Commonwealth. It is now my pleasure to introduce Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf to discuss his vision for how this important resource can work to benefit all Pennsylvanians. It's a process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maureen. Representative Madden, sorry. And is that you back there, Tim? Thank you very much for hosting this. This is nice of you to have us here. So I just want to really echo what Representative Madden said. First of all, it's nice to be in Monroe County. It's nice to be back. And it's really important, I think, what we're talking about today. Last summer, as Maureen pointed out, Lieutenant Governor Fetterman completed his listening tour of Pennsylvania. He went all around the state to every one of the 67 counties. And he had a listening tour to ask Pennsylvanians what they thought about legalizing recreational marijuana. And I was, and I think he was too, really surprised at the result. Through surveys, we know that a majority of Pennsylvanians believe that recreational adult use, recreational marijuana ought to be legalized. But that's exactly what Lieutenant Governor Fetterman found. Now, he made no effort to say that he had random sampling, and this was a scientific sample of Pennsylvanians, but the results were overwhelming. He had some tens of thousands of people responded through email or tweets or electronically. Many more thousands showed up at these events all across Pennsylvania, and the result was the same. People want to make this legal. So as a result of that, we had a press conference, and then I went to the General Assembly, and I asked the General Assembly to decriminalize cannabis and legalize it for adult use. This year, I again, a couple months ago, went to the General Assembly and asked them to make this a priority for the fall as we work to find ways to overcome the economic hardships of the COVID-19 pandemic. So far, I haven't heard anything. There's been no movement to advance legislation. So once again, I'm back, and I'm here today to ask once again to focus on 2 particular benefits of legalization. One, the potential economic benefit that Pennsylvania would get, and second, the much-needed restorative justice that Maureen talked about. In just a little while, you're going to hear from a local hemp farmer, Eric, who's going to, Eric Titus White, sorry, your whole name. Eric was able to, we just talked a little bit about it outside, able to begin his farming career after the historic Farm Bill was passed in 2018. Building his hemp farm has helped him realize his own personal economic growth and a sense of fulfillment in his work. Legalizing adult use cannabis offers the same potential growth and fulfillment for many more Pennsylvanians. Pennsylvania's hemp farmers today are working hard to rebuild a long neglected industry in Pennsylvania. As you might know, hemp was once a very widespread crop in Pennsylvania. We were just talking about how many hemp-field townships there are in so many counties all around Pennsylvania, because that crop was cultivated in Pennsylvania for more than 250 years. Though they look similar, hemp is not marijuana. Hemp and marijuana are 2 different varieties of the same plant species. I think, Eric, you brought some hemp over here to take a look at. While marijuana is cultivated because it produces high concentrations of the chemical THC, industrial hemp contains very small amounts of THC. By law, actually, it contains no more than 0.3%, and has long been grown for seeds, for fibers, and the extracts that go into making the oils. Much of our knowledge about how to grow, process, and use hemp was lost after industrial hemp was regulated and banned along with marijuana in the 1930s. And Pennsylvania lost the benefits of an industry, a farming industry, with a long history of providing jobs and resources right here in the Commonwealth. When hemp and marijuana were banned, we didn't just lose jobs. We lost decades of research, opportunities, innovation, and economic growth. Even worse, marijuana criminalization laws have disproportionately harmed many people in Pennsylvania, contributing to especially severe economic trauma and harm in historically disadvantaged communities. We've begun to reverse the damage of those losses now. My administration has made changes in both how hemp and marijuana are treated in the Commonwealth and how we treat criminal justice. In 2017, we began providing opportunities for hemp research so that we could begin to restore the knowledge we lost and try to make up for lost time. When federal legislation was passed the following year to allow for the reintroduction of industrial hemp for commercial purposes throughout the United States, we worked closely with agricultural partners to help farmers make the most of this new opportunity. Hemp is now a very fast-growing industry in Pennsylvania once again, one that is diversifying our economy and helping to strengthen it, which is, again, something we desperately need right now as we go through the economic damage of COVID-19 pandemic. 2019 was the first year that industrial hemp was reintroduced, and the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture that year issued 324 hemp permits. This year, the department issued 588 permits, and 61 of Pennsylvania's 67 counties now have hemp growing locations. We're also making progress when it comes to marijuana, and we're taking steps to reverse the injustices caused by marijuana criminalization. In 2018, again, I signed the Clean Slate Bill, which allows for the sealing of records of certain low-level offenses if a person has been free from convictions for 10 years. That law can be applied to certain marijuana-related offenses, and the Board of Pardons has expedited pardons for low-level marijuana offenses. But these things take time. That's the problem. And while Pennsylvanians with low-level convictions are waiting 10 years to let their record lapse so that they can be eligible for clean slate, or they're waiting through every stage of the pardon process, their conviction is making it harder for them to get a job, to get and find somewhere to live, and to support their families. There's much more that needs to be done to reverse the decades of injustice, and we need to start by decriminalizing cannabis and legalizing it for adult use. The majority of Pennsylvanians support legalizing cannabis for adult use, and it's a needed step toward restorative justice. It would provide the economic benefits during a time of great economic strain. All these things are good, positive steps for Pennsylvania. Legalizing cannabis will open up another untapped industry in Pennsylvania, one with the potential to bring in millions, actually billions of dollars of revenue, as we've seen in other states. And by the way, there are a number of states that have legalized marijuana. One that is probably going to do it in November is right next door, New Jersey. So we either do it now and take advantage of what we can do here in Pennsylvania, or we're going to lose a lot of revenue to our neighboring states. The growth of the adult use cannabis industry would help provide jobs, of course, and bolster our economy. And the revenue from the industry could be used to help support Pennsylvania's small businesses that have suffered because of the pandemic. The point is, while this is going to take time, the sooner we begin the process, the sooner our efforts are going to result in good economic results and revenue for the Commonwealth. We have a head start because of our efforts to research, grow, test, and process hemp over the last few years. We're coming back. And we've learned a lot that's also going to benefit farmers and business owners who choose to get involved in the new cannabis industry. Now, more than ever, Pennsylvania needs the jobs. We need the economic growth. We need the revenue, and we need the restorative justice that the legalization of adult use cannabis will provide. So once again, my third call to the General Assembly to send legislation to my desk to legalize cannabis for adult use. It's what Pennsylvania wants. It's what Pennsylvania needs. So thank you. And now I'm going to turn this over to Eric Titus White, who's going to tell us more about his foray into hemp farming. Eric.
Hello, how you doing? My name is Eric Titus White. want to thank Governor Wolf and State Representative Madden for having me here to talk about my experience with the hemp plant, a cousin of cannabis, the recreational variety. I was living in Iraq, and I was working there with I run a demining company in Iraq, and I, like many people did recently, I did Ancestry.com and found out that the person that I thought was my father was not my father, and my actual father was a ex-sheriff from Albuquerque and an owner of 15 medical marijuana dispensaries in New Mexico. So in our first meeting, I realized that we had a lot in common. He had spent time in the military, and I had spent time in Iraq, but he was very adamant about his newly found son not working in Iraq anymore, and said, "Hey man, the family business is cannabis. Why don't you get out of there and try and see what you can do in the United States?" So I immediately started looking into options in Pennsylvania. And one of the options in Pennsylvania at the time was hemp research. So we were trying to find a way to work with a university and research hemp so that I could grow hemp and kind of learn about the plant and then work my way into medicinal CBD products and hemp farming. That was 2018. And very quickly in 2019, I received a letter saying that the Farm Bill had passed and Pennsylvania was allowing hemp farmers to start growing hemp for a $600 license. So I applied. The Department of Agriculture was really wonderful. We were allowed to grow an unlimited amount of acreage of hemp. I decided to grow 5 acres. It was my first time really getting my hands into the dirt. I found a beautiful organic farm in my hometown of East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, and began my career as a farmer. It was wildly rewarding. And for my family as well as for my community, I was able to bring people from around East Stroudsburg and the Pocono Mountains and people vacationing and open my farm up and show them what it meant to grow hemp, what it meant to grow a plant that looks and smells exactly like cannabis, is cannabis, just without the THC. And most importantly, what it meant to farm without chemicals. This is a plant that thrives naturally in its natural environment. You give it good soil, and it gives you good medicine. It is one of the most important lessons that I teach when people come to my farm to learn about this plant. And I also really want to make a point here today that not only is this plant going to provide economic prosperity for the state of Pennsylvania, but it'll also provide natural health in the farming community, in the agricultural community. The less that we have to put into our soil, the more that we'll get out. And this is a carbon capturing plant. It grows in 3 months. It pulls a massive amount of carbon out of the air and stores it in the plant, which we can then use for medicine, for building materials, which I'm building our farm out of hemp right now. There's some hemp blocks on the table over there. If you look at that hemp block, that's carbon. That's carbon that we pulled out of the air with a plant and put into our home, and it'll stay there forever. It's a carbon sink, and it's fireproof, it smells good, it looks good, and it's antibacterial, and it helps with the moisture in your home, and it's R24, and it's not some chemical that you spray through a hose and envelop your home in something that you wouldn't want to be breathing or you wouldn't want your children to be breathing. So the economic, ability of hemp is there, and the natural health and the medicine is also there, the same as in the cannabis business. So I'm a perfect example of the ability of this plant to bring the community together, to start new business, and to start an education program about what our future looks like, what our sustainable future looks like in agriculture in Pennsylvania. So I'm really looking forward to adult use legal cannabis. I'm hoping that one day I can grow cannabis on my farm. And I want to thank, again, State Representative Maureen Madden and Governor Wolf for everything that you're doing to fight the good fight. Thank you very much. And we'll bring back Governor Wolf.
All of us would be happy to take questions. Any questions?
Governor
Yes.
Why are you speaking in Northeast PA today? What about Northeastern Pennsylvania are you trying to?
I wanted to highlight what's going on with Eric's Farm and just one example of the possibilities that exist by the legalization of recreational marijuana, given his example of what he's done with hemp farming since we made that legal just, 2 years ago.
And that's in Marshall's Creek, correct? East Stroudsburg. Okay, thank you.
And if I might add something.
Come on over.
Excuse me. When Lieutenant Governor Fetterman came to East Stroudsburg University with the listening tour in a room full of people of various ages, at least, I'm going to say 75 to 80% of the people in attendance raised their hand in support of the legalization of adult recreational cannabis. So obviously, if, for years, Governor Wolf, what did you say, 3 years? We've been trying to get this done. Why don't we start in an area where the majority of the people support it, see the benefits of it from a social and economic and, prison reform or restorative justice perspective? Why not start in Northeast Pennsylvania and get the movement going in a positive way? Thank you.
Yeah, I think industrial hemp has been 3 years. We actually started, the listening tour was 2019. So
I started this conversation in 2012.
there you go. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Yes. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sure.
You had mentioned that New Jersey will soon legalize recreational marijuana. Do you worry that a lot of Pennsylvanians would travel and spend their money over there?
Yes. I think 30% of Pennsylvania's population lives within half an hour or so of the New Jersey-Pennsylvania border. So I would think it's a good bet that if Pennsylvania does not legalize recreational marijuana and New Jersey does, that people will go to New Jersey. And as they do that, I'm assuming New Jersey will put a tax on it, and so that Pennsylvania tax money will be going to New Jersey. I think New York has also been considering this for some time. I don't know how close they are to actually doing it, but it's happening in the neighborhood, and I think we ought to look at, not just for that reason, but because Pennsylvanians want to legalize it.
What impact would the upcoming election have on this proposal? Do you think it would be more likely that the legislature might bring this to your desk after the upcoming election or before that?
That's a good question. I'm not sure what impact the election might have on this. I would think that people in both parties would want to see this legalized. I mean, there are a lot of people who would like to see it legalized because of the criminal justice implications. I think there are a number of people who would like to see it like Eric. It's an economic opportunity for people in agriculture to actually get into a new area. And as he pointed out, it's an amazing crop. It actually fixes nitrogen. It traps carbon. It's good ground cover. And as Pennsylvanians know, because this has been a commonwealth that has grown this for many, many centuries, well, 250 years, sorry, that before it was made illegal, this area is very hospitable to hemp. Okay, yes.
That was made from the profits if it were legalized? Like, what programs would it help? Education, roads, infrastructure, that sort of thing?
It's interesting. The lieutenant governor's sense from the conversations he had around Pennsylvania was that Pennsylvanians wanted it to go to specific things, not to the general fund. And so I propose that it goes to restorative justice and that the big chunk of it go to small businesses that have been affected by COVID-19. This would be a source of revenue at a time when we actually need revenue in the Commonwealth for specific issues that the COVID-19 pandemic has caused. Anything? Yeah? Oh, okay.
Is there a stronger push for this because of the pandemic?
Well, I think there was a pretty strong push for it before this pandemic, but I think the pandemic has just created just one more reason to move forward with it. Yes?
You mentioned that the infrastructure for
The-
establishing more difficult to set up, or do you think we can build upon what's been established with the medicinal cannabis?
I'm not sure there's a real overlap with medicinal cannabis. I think the overlap is probably on the growing side, that the technology and the knowledge of what it takes to grow hemp in whatever form is probably more relevant. I'm not sure that the dispensaries for medical purposes, that there's a natural overlap there. I don't know, is that?
No.
Anything else? All right, thank you very much. Thanks.
Workers' comp. Mic check 1 2 5 4 3 2 1. Kenny Curb, Skyler Henry. Next to the construction going on here at the Cannon. Better? Doing these with during the.
How's Gary? Can you tell some Kenny stories?
Gary told some Kenny stories.
He makes fun of me all the time.
He's a good dude, man.
Great guy.
Have you booked your stuff for Nashville already?
No. I've been told to do that.
Really? Alicia called me last week. Yeah. And you said you were going in Miami and Nashville, right? As for what shift, I know you guys had planned on doing stuff in Miami, right?
Yeah. We're going to
Pennsylvania, I saw that for that sweet story.
To your left a little.
Yep.
Yep, thank you.
You're welcome.
good without Ferrone? Oh, okay. Yep. It just got quiet. I was like, oh, I don't even know if I was still connected or not.
Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden slammed the president for his handling of not only the pandemic, but his own coronavirus case.
Okie dokie, thank you, sir. We've done 2 shakes and land plays. Okay, here we go.
All right. Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden slammed the president for not only his handling of the pandemic, but also his own coronavirus case. Sure. Democratic, okay. Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden slammed the president for not only his handling of the pandemic, but also his own coronavirus case. Tease. President Trump says he wants to hold a rally every day until the election. I'm Deborah Alfarone at the White House with health experts' concerns about crowds on the campaign trail. Okay. President Trump says he wants to hold a rally every day until Election Day. I'm Deborah Alfarone at the White House with health experts' concerns about crowds on the campaign trail. Sure. President Trump says he wants to hold a rally every day until Election Day. I'm Deborah Alfarone at the White House with health experts' concerns about crowds on the campaign trail.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, New York. Appreciate it.
Thank you, New York.
All right, have a good one. Talk to you later.